Should you be grateful for a job? By Kate Morgan, 1st April 2021. It's natural to feel thankful that you are employed, especially when jobs are scarce. But is that gratitude actually a misguided emotion? It's become a common refrain, I'm just grateful to have a job. The last year have wreaked undeniable havoc on the working world. Globally, the working hours and income lost in 2020 added up to an equivalent of 255 million full-time jobs. Workplace closures, layoffs, and a steep rise in unemployment are enough to make anyone who's managed to hold onto their job feel some measure of gratitude, or at least pressure to be grateful. That pressure predates the pandemic. One of the most pervasive conversations around jobs and is that we should be thankful to be hired, when competition, especially when competition for a position is fierce. Candidates are even expected to express the sentiment if they want to be hired in the first place. It's hard to imagine leaving an interview without saying how much you appreciate being considered or sending thank you email. But it's possible some of that gratitude is misplaced. Perhaps it's not quite appropriate to be thankful that an employer is letting you work for them. And while gratitude can be objective good for you, research consistently associates giving thanks with increased happiness. It also has a darker side that can make you more willing to put up with a situation that makes you unhappy. Differing obligations. Some workers may be much more inclined to feel grateful for their jobs than others. Workers who expect to be hired or promoted may express less gratitude than those without systemic advantages. This is often the case for white men, who experience more upward mobility than other groups and less bias that prevents them from securing jobs or getting interviews in the first place. For instance, multiple studies have shown resumes with white-sounding names and those that don't play racial cues are significantly more likely to garner a response. Imposter syndrome may also play a part. Workers who aren't confident they deserve their role may develop feeling for unworthiness despite being qualified or skilled. Women are particularly vulnerable to imposter syndrome and might find themselves giving outsized thanks for their jobs. And in the recent months, Latino and Black Americans were significantly more likely to be affected by pandemic-related layoffs than white Americans. Those among these groups who have kept their jobs are likely feeling pressure to express gratitude, even if they have to force it and even their workplace doesn't inspire much to be thankful for. Although this forced gratitude problem can happen anywhere, Alex Wood, Centennial Chair in Psychology at the London School of Economics and Political Science, believes Americans particularly feel obligation. In an individualistic culture like in the US, the smallest favor may be taken as a huge boon. Studies show that Americans say thank you more often than people in the other countries, and in situations others wouldn't deem deserving of gratitude, like being employed. In the US, it seems unacceptable to say one isn't a grateful person, says Wood. In the UK, people would laugh and say, what is there to be grateful for? It's a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. If you manage to get people feeling grateful, things have been maybe gone a bit wrong. It shouldn't be an equitable exchange. The economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic do alter the equation a bit. Concedes Woods, it makes sense that an employer should be thankful employees working more hours than usual to keep suffering business afloat, and that employees would feel gratitude for a boss who didn't let them go while profits fell. If it's been costly to the employer to employ you, he says, then yes, you are going to feel grateful. In that case, the gratitude between employers and employee is warranted, adds Wood. Globally, the pandemic has created a dynamic in some workplaces. The problem with gratitude. Although some gratitude is genuine and spontaneous, other expressions of thanks, like the kind many workers feel pressure to exhibit right now, aren't similarly authentic. and this forced phony gratitude can backfire. If you are asked to think about the time when we practice forced gratitude, most of us can up with one, says Sarah Greenberg, a California-based psychotherapist and corporate mental health consultant. Like when we are young and don't want to eat our peas, and our parents says, "Be grateful you have food." Well, we continue to do that to ourselves as adults. That forced gratitude become a social norm, and then it become our internal voice. As adults, in social situations and at work, we start telling ourselves not to complain, to appreciate that we have, and once start forcing ourselves to be grateful, we may begin using tactics Grandberg calls gratitude bypassing to avoid other negative emotions. For instance, she said, an employee might start to think, "I really hate my boss," then stifle that feeling by thinking, "but I'm grateful just to have my job."